Sattvam, consciousness, cha, also, asya, of the gigantic form, vinirbinam, being separately manifested, mahan, total energy, mahatattva, this nyam, with control, upavishat, entered into, chitena, amsena, along with his part of consciousness, yena, by which a soul, a living entity, vijnanam, specific knowledge, pratipadyate, cultivates. Translation. Thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, mahatattva, entered with his conscious part. Thus the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. Text 27 is no purport to this one. Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested, and from his legs, the earthly planets, and from his abdomen, the sky separately manifested themselves. Within them, the demigods and others were also manifest in terms of the modes of material nature. Text number 28. The demigods, qualified by the super excellent quality of the mode of goodness, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature in the mode of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, texts 14 to 15, it is said that those who are highly developed in the mode of goodness are promoted to the higher heavenly planetary systems, and those who are overpowered by the mode of passion are situated in the middle planetary systems, the earth and similar planets. But those who are surcharged with the mode of ignorance are degraded to the lower planetary systems or to the animal kingdom. The demigods are highly developed in the mode of goodness, and thus they are situated in the heavenly planets. Below human beings are the animals. Although some of them mingle with human society, cows, horses, dogs, etc., are habituated living under the protection of human beings. The word antyatikena is very significant in this verse. By development of the mode of goodness and material nature, one can become situated in the heavenly planets. But by excessive development of the modes of passion and ignorance, the human being indulges in killing the animals who are meant to be protected by mankind. Persons who indulge in unnecessarily animal killing have excessively developed in the modes of passion and ignorance and have no hope of advancing to the mode of goodness. They are destined to be degraded to lower status of life. Planetary systems are calculated as upper and lower in terms of classes of living entities who live there. Durga me parimendasya skalapate gatimuhu swakvipayustudanina shantu shantu avalambanam omagyanatimirandasya jananjana svakaya Chaksurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we're continuing with the universal form. So today, because we've really rushed through a lot of slokas in the last 2 or 3 days, so I'm going to recap on it, because what these slokas have done is to describe the creation of the 26 elements within the universal form of the Lord, to facilitate us living entities who are living in these bodies. So first and foremost, this concept of universal form that we are reading from is quite staggering, mind-blowing, And it's not really described anywhere else in any other format. No other religion has tackled this, nor has any scientific explanation come close to this concept of creation according to the Lord's Virat Rupa. And this Virat Rupa is actually multi-layered. It describes different aspects of the human existence, or how we come into being. Krishna Gan, yesterday, KG, he explained that it deals with two principal things. It deals with the creation of all the material elements in this universe, and secondly, the injection of all the jivas from the body of Mahavishnu into the bodies according to their karma within the shell of this universe. So I just want to recap here, because these last 10 shlokas have been immensely exciting, even though there's no purport to them, because it's talking about how the elements were introduced into this universe. So first and foremost, we'll just go back to our basics, like we do in any science, and we'll learn what the basics are, and we learn what the elements are. I'm not going to teach, we just recap on the elements. So forgetting what you know about the elements according to scientific values, because they just describe the principal earth element, but it says here there are 26 elements. So just quickly going through them, because each of these elements is crucial for our existence. This is what our body comprises of. So first 5 are very easy to understand. We all know them. What's the sloka go in? Bhumi, Apo, Nalu, Vayu. So we've got earth, Bhumi, Apo, water, Bhumi, Apo, Nalu, Vayu, the ether, the wind, and the what's the 5th one? Heat, fire, the mind. No, not the mind. Yeah. So we have those 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Right? They're grounded elements, so we can understand them. The material scientists are analysing them through their periodic chart in the elementary table. Forget it. That's okay. That's just one element. Let them do it. But we have more subtle elements than that. So I'm going to talk about the order of the creation here. So the next subtle elements are 3 sets of senses. This is very, very paramount, because senses is what it's all about. You know, in the spiritual world, there's service to Krishna on the spiritual level, and we utilise all of our abilities to serve Krishna. But in the material world, the senses come into play, where that propensity is to try and enjoy our senses. And what are the senses? What are the elements there? There's, help me out here, there's sound, there's... hang on, no, okay, we'll go back to... just lost the look. So we have our sight, sound, hearing, touch, and smell, right? So they're the 5 ones. Everybody's got these, and animals have them to certain proportions. So then to get these senses, we need perception of the senses, so they're called knowledge acquiring senses. So that's another 5. So what are the knowledge acquiring senses? So if we smell something, what do we need? Nose, right? When it doesn't block up. Or when we taste something, we taste it with our tongue. See something, we get it, you know, and hear something. So they're our knowledge acquiring senses. How easy is that? We're up to 10, right? 10 senses, right? And so this is what this Bhagavatam has been talking about in the last couple of days, and it's actually really incredible, because all these senses have been introduced by the Lord in his gigantic universal forms through the agency of the demigods. So he's talking about certain demigods which introduce these senses. So we'll just recap very quickly. When the palette, text number 12, it begins, Agni, or heat, separate from his mouth, and all the direction material affairs into respective positions. By that energy, living entity expresses himself in words. Next one, palette of the gigantic form. Varuna, director of air in the planetary systems, entered into the universal form, and thus the living entity has facility to taste everything within his tongue. So Varuna is facilitating that. The Ashwini Kamaras entered into their proper position when the Lord manifested 2 nostrils. Because of this, living entity can smell the aromas of everything. And then the eyes of the gigantic form were separately manifested. The sun, director of light, entered into them with partial representations of eyesight. So here we have the senses, and then we have the working senses as conducted by the demigods. They've been the knowledge-acquiring senses. So the third set of senses are called, stay with me here, it's all right, I'll show you a picture later on, and you get all excited. Okay, so next set of senses is called the working senses. So now we have our senses, we know that, we have our knowledge-acquiring senses, but to do that, we need something to make it all happen, right? So we've got our hands, and we've got our legs, and this is a sloka we were talking about yesterday. We had a sort of rather amazing shloka here that, where were we? Krishna Gowans. When the genitals of the gigantic form separately became manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with partial semen. Thus living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. Working senses, the genitals, right? And then the next one was Mitra, entered partial organs of evacuation. Thus living entities are able to pass stool and urine. So these are 5 working senses: the hands, the legs, the tongue once again, and our genitals and our evacuating organs. And each one, the demigods, as soon as they're created, the demigods in charge. So we know that there are 33 million demigods that are in charge of the material universe. You say, whoa, that's a lot. But you look up in the sky and you look at all the planets there, myriads of planets, you go, oh yeah, well maybe that can happen, that figure could be right. So therefore we have come to these 15 working senses. So then we have all the subtle elements, which are Kam, Mano, Buddhi. Mind, ego and intelligence. So, this is great. So intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and who was the demigod of intelligence? Lord Brahma, the first living creature. So Lord Brahma, who created all the bodies, his body is made of pure intelligence, that element of intelligence. Next, after that, this is really interesting. The heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. So what's the demigod of the mind? Chandra, the moon. So therefore that makes sense, doesn't it? When we have the full moon, sometimes the mind goes, it's in your mind. So sometimes our mind goes berserk. So that's Chandra. So thus the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. That's what it says here, right? So then we have one more element left on the subtle level, the ahankara, false ego. So thereafter, materialist ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the control of false ego with his own partial activities, by which the living entity transacts his objective actions. Of course, we know Lord Rudra is an expansion of Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, and that's resulted from anger, pride, jealousy, and so forth and so on. So these are connected with the false ego. So to actually enhance our spirituality, we have to bring our false ego under control by the agency of the mind and the intelligence. So how many elements have we got so far? See, we've been constructing all these 26 elements. So we've got the 5 gross elements, we've got the 15 senses, 3 sets of senses, so that's 20. We've got the subtle elements, the mind, ego and intelligence, that's 23. We're getting really close. So 24 was in sloka number 26, where it says, thereafter this consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy Mahatattva entered in his conscious parts. So this is where the Lord comes into the consciousness of all living entities as the super soul, right? And so today's sloka, a very exciting sloka that we have, the head, it talks about another aspect of universal form. So this is one aspect that we've been studying, all the elements have come into universal form. Now we have a different layer, so we have all the planetary systems that are in this whole gigantic universe and where they're situated. So in text 27 it's talking, we just, text 26 we discussed today, thereafter, that's the coming of the consciousness into the living entities. Next one, thereafter from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested. From his legs, the earthly planets, and from his abdomen, the skies separately manifest themselves. Within them, the demigods and others were also manifested in terms of material nature. Now, I have this very exciting picture I want to show you that sort of gives you a description of what is going on with this material universe. I just stumbled upon this and I went, whoa! This is a real good one. This one is beautiful. So here is a depiction of the material universe. Can you sort of see it a little bit? Okay. So here is the head. There's Lord Brahma and the head of the Lord there. And there's Lord Shiva's planet here. And we can see that all the demigods are situated here. All the planets of the demigods, the heavenly planets, are here on the shoulders of the Lord. And in the middle of the Lord's stomach and thighs is the earthly stratum, and we're in the earthly planets here. And as Srila Prabhupada said, below the earthly planet are the 7 layers of subterranean heavenly planets, right? Ending with Patala Loka at the sole of the Lord's feet, right? So this is the different planetary systems. And it also describes the Lord's abdomen as being sky or ether, ethereal space. So we see the Lord's abdomen here and we see the earthly planets. So this raises a conjecture with material science that poses a sort of question that these material scientists are seeing. They know a lot about the earthly stratum, and through their telescopes they're looking way up there into the myriads of stars, right up there. But they're far away. So a prolific announcement came out the day before yesterday that, hey, there's life on these galaxies, one of these live galaxies. We're sure there is because it's the same as the Earth. And it's only 7 light years away. So you multiply 186,000 miles a second by 60 by 60 by 24 to get a day, by 7 to get a week, by 360 to get a year. And you multiply that by 7, whatever it is, and hey, it's not far away at all, is it? So the problem is that with these scientists, that we have this space here. It's called Antariksha, and it is vast. Look at the Lord's belly, it's huge. So there's all these planets here, and they could all be, they're all up there. We can see them in their different clusters. And we, as the scientists, are speculating this planet, that planet's just like us. We can't reach anywhere, so they're assuming that these people can't go anywhere either. But these are the heavenly planets, the different layers. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes Choda Bhuvana Maja that there's 14 layers of planetary systems. 7 of them are upper planets, or there's Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, Gyanaloka. So they're different planetary systems. And so people, the earthly scientists are assuming it's all sort of random out there, it's vast, there might be life on one of them. But actually, what Vedic cosmology tells us is that these layers of planets, hey, everybody can travel from one planet to another, they all talk to each other, they know who's there. and there's a whole cosmic order that's going on these heavenly planets. So that, to find that out, that would raise a lot of questions and a lot of fear. It would raise maybe a little bit of jealousy that, this aspect of the universe here, wow, that we're alone. Why did God create us? That why are we here just ourselves? And, there's all this enjoyment happening up there. Why can't we go there? So you become very the envy, the jealousy and the pride kicks in. So what are we going to do about it? We'll show them, we'll make a rocket and we'll go there, right? We'll send a rocket up into space and we'll find out what's going on up there. But actually, this is what this sloka is all about. In the next sloka, it says that actually there's a system that the demigods, qualified by super excellent quality of mode of goodness, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because their nature and the mode of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates. So now we've come to the 25th element, the gunas, the mode of passion, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. So these gunas are also created for the benefit of the living entities according to their karma. So it's said here that if you're in the mode of goodness, then you are able to achieve these planets. But unfortunately, material scientists have no knowledge of these 26 elements, nor do they have any knowledge of the time factor, like in the form of the yugas, the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, as we know, lasts 3,240,000 years. No, hurry, go back, 4,320,000 years. Do you believe me? Well, anyway, it's Kali Yuga, which is 432,000 years multiplied by 10. So it's a long time, and they don't know that we're in this age of Kali. Polar hypocrisy, different age, that's why we're ignorant. This is the age of quarrel. But in all the other ages, there was a certain system by which we could attain to these higher realms and live as we're supposed to be. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, 10th sloka, it describes this that, Krishna, it says, Saha Jagya, I need my glasses, sorry. It's really small. Saha Jagya Praja Sreshta Puravocha Prajapati Anena Prasavisya Van Esa Sto Ishtakamадuk. That in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods. So we get in this universal form in the beginning, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. That's the old translation of the Bhagavad Gita. In the new Bhagavad Gita, which is much better, describes this verse that by the performance of his yajna, everything desirable for living and happily and achieving liberation. That's what yajna does. So this is what it was all about. The Lord is facilitating this amazing chariot of the body which we're in. So many things that we can enjoy within this body, but gratitude has to be shown. So that gratitude is through the respect for the demigods and for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just in the next layer of the universal form, so we talk about the different layers, the different strategies, we're just going to come across the Varna Ashram system. And that is in society, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Sudras and the 4 orders. So that society, when it's functioning properly, then with the proper sacrifice that is given, then the whole society moves forward. And this is how everybody becomes elevated to the heavenly realms. This is the proper way to be living. This is how this universe was constructed in this purpose. And the purpose actually is for living entities to live happily, and as it says, ultimately to achieve liberation, get out of the bondage of the material universe. There's a system. So, unfortunately, in this age of Kali Yuga, this connection has been broken. This connection between man and the demigods is broken, and consequently, because the fact that the pillars of religion have been eroded. So we know what the pillars of religion are: cleanliness, austerity, mercy and tolerance. And so in people's desire, penchant for sense gratification, they are abandoning this, instead taking to illicit sex, intoxication, gambling and meat eating, which is the antithesis of these religious principles. So instead of the mode of goodness, society is just gradually progressing towards this mode of passion, as Srila Prabhupada is talking about, consciousness for desires for sense enjoyment and the karmic reactions that come with it. Just in my short lifetime, which is nearly a century on this planet right now, a bit short, but we're seeing this sort of gradual degradation of values that people are very much prone to not perform anything that's to do with austerities or religious principles. In fact, they sort of shying away from the fact that God exists, and so the context lost with the demigods. So they're coming upon a slippery slope when you do that, because we can see that there is consequences. There are karmic consequences on many different levels. So we have the karmic consequences of our own actions. If we want to jump into a river and it's flowing fast and we don't know what the river's like, we might get caught up in some ropes and drown. So whose fault is that? So that's like instant karma, right? So we have that sort of karmic thing. If we go too close to fire, we get burned. That's our personal karma. But then there's also the karma that we suffer that we're in the neighbourhood, and sometimes our neighbourhood becomes flooded, and our bridge becomes flooded, everything gets flooded. So it's not our fault, but it's the karma of the neighbourhood. And then there's the karma of the country, that a country might go to war and call you up to fight. So that's another sort of karma. And then there's the global karma. We've been reading about that a lot lately. Just in the last 3 days, I read about some villages in Fiji that had to be abandoned because the sea was rising. So the villagers lost their livelihood, their homes. So it wasn't their fault. It was just global karma, right? This is what everybody was doing to make the sea rise, global warming. And in New Guinea, every day you read something. Actually, in New Guinea, these farmers, they used to know when the rains would come and plant their crops, but now they can't be certain. And then yesterday I was reading that the Franz Joseph Glacier in New Zealand, who's been on that one? Anyone? I've been on top of there. That's melting, right? And it's melting at a rapid rate. It's disappearing. So things, the water levels are increasing. So there's all different types of karma. And this is the product of the age of Kali Yuga, the symptoms. So it's all coming about by the disconnection with the Lord's plan. That is why it is so important for us to understand the nature of this universal form, how it's all working, how wonderful it is, and what integral part we play on our journey to find out what is the nature of the Supreme Lord. So the second canto and the third canto talk about this universal form in great detail, how meticulously the Lord has planned everything, and so how we can reconnect with the Lord before it gets worse. So Srila Prabhupada, in the second part of the purport here, condemns animal slaughter and describes that through this the people will sink to the lower stages of life. So that is the most unfortunate thing that can happen, that we can lose our human propensity, because as human beings we can ask these questions: who are we? Where are we going? What is our nature? And reconnect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Reconnect with the universe. So in Kali, because this is the general nature, the slippery slope, that people, because of their desires, are being born and reborn, but they're not getting any closer to connecting with the Lord. In fact, they're getting further away, and so therefore so much trouble and strife is happening as we go along. But we've been thrown a lifeline by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the sacrifices that we did in all these other ages, in Satya, Treta and Dwapara, they're very elaborate, not possible. But just by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we can achieve the benefits of all those yajnas that were there in the other age. And even further than that, we can reconnect with Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the Supreme Facilitator, who created, through his agency of Balaram, who created Mahavishnu, who created this material universe, and who's showing us this universal form. Thus we can reconnect with the demigods, reconnect with the universe, and develop this unalloyed love for Krishna and understand our higher spiritual nature. So this is the purpose of this universe, to actually understand what our higher spiritual nature is, and then restore our balance with in harmony with the Supreme Lord, and then live happily within this material universe. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Corrections? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just want to thank you so much for your enthusiasm in lively class.
In describing the universal form.
Yes, well, it's just so nice, because for me I just sort of tone off, but you've made me interested, so I thank you very much. Now my question is, what does intuition come under?
Did that word come into the slogan? Intuition? No,
it didn't.
It
That's my,
well, it's a combination, I would say, of definitely the intelligence and the mind, and intuition, referring to our connection with the Supreme Lord, comes with the fact that the cleansing of the contamination of material energy puts you in contact with the supersoul, because the supersoul is always there in our hearts, as we know, because Krishna describes as the element there that comes in and animates everything. So he's there as a silent witness. But when we stop and go, what's going on? Then we begin a relationship, and that's intuition, that the Lord actually starts to reciprocate there. That's, there are other intuitions that a mother feels for a child and all these things, different layers of intuition, but the real intuition is that when we actually start listening to the Lord within the heart. Yeah.
So could you speak more about that, like, being able to hear that intuition, how to know if it's true or false?
It comes in the form, all I can say, it comes in the form of consciousness and our conscience also. Just like I had a conversation, he's not here, with a gentleman here who's adopted Krishna conscious principles but lives outside, then very hard sometimes living outside due to the association of others, and he did happen to get inebriated on Christmas Day, right? And he had a headache for a day or two, and he said he had the guilty conscience about it for a whole week. He just, felt very, very guilty. So where's that coming from? It comes from our, conscience, right? So there's a relationship there that sometimes we listen to our conscience. It's like that, that's one aspect. Thank you. Mani Banda Prabhu.
just along with that topic, Prabhupada's mentioned one class that what's called intuition, as you say, it's Paramatma manifesting as conscience. So that's in the human form of life, in the non-human form like animals, Paramatma manifests as instinct. So it's the same principle, but
yeah, animals are very instinctive. Yeah, so
that they just naturally know what to do. So you could ask, where does that come from? You know?
yeah.
So I know Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he gave, there was 3 examples to illustrate this instinctual propensity. I can't remember 2 of them, but one of them was when a rhinoceros baby is born. As soon as it hits the ground, it runs away from its mother. So why does it do that? So apparently the mother's tongue is very, very rough, and it will start to lick the baby. It actually licked that very tender skin off the baby. But after a few, half an hour, it solidifies, and So it was just one example he gave that why would that baby run away? It's instinct, it's super soul. Anyway, but the Bani Swami, I remember when he was here previously during COVID, giving all those classes, he was mentioning about the senses. And he described the senses are actually microscopic elements. So the external manifestation, is the ear, eye, nose, etc. But the actual original elements are microscopic elements, and they travel with the subtle body from at the time of death, jiva, encased within the subtle body, goes to the next destination, but the microscopic senses travel with that also. So he said, like out-of-body experiences, the jiva is out of the body but can perceive what's going on. It's because the senses are, with the jiva as well. So it was just one observation that the gross body may be left behind, but we have perception because of those senses travel with us. So in combination with the microscopic senses and the demigods as senses function, but if there's a breakdown in that system, we're blind, we're deaf, or whatever. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking with instinct, just one example for me is really amazing is the spider. If you've ever seen a spider cast a web, it's just so intricate. How does he do it? He just sort of like it's a natural sort of progression. So it's just something he learns. It's in practically every creature for their own survival. So this is the Lord's, the Lord's universe. It's so Prabhupada emphasises. This is a good point because Prabhupada emphasised in the purport here that we should look after all these creatures as human beings. It's our responsibility to maintain all the creatures and make sure that every creature lives his own life, and then that's a natural progression from the soul of that creature into the next body till it attains the human platform. So when we interrupt this cycle through the process of animal killing and animal slaughter, which is happening in prolific proportions all over the world, then that actually interferes with the whole pattern of the running of the universe. And so therefore with all the climatic changes and that is a consequence. So many different bad aspects that are happening in the world are a tribute to the fact that there's wanton animal slaughter. Are we all good? Yes, sir.
Just on that point of instinct or intuition, Prabhupada explains, as Manivandu was saying, you were also saying about the super soul. He also explains it in a way to prove reincarnation. He says instinct or intuition means you've done it before. And so you just, subconsciously...
Instinct that you've done it before in your last life.
That's how,
that's what...
know to do something.
That cements what Banu Maharaj was saying, yeah. Thank you.
I just had a question about if anyone knows, about like when you say demigods are responsible for specific senses and to give some more information how they do it or what job description for a demigod?
Well, the demigods are in charge of the elements, and the elements are Krishna's created the elements, so they supply the elements like Agni supplies the fire and King Indra supplies the rain, right? And they're the sort of order suppliers, right? But if there is no reciprocation or proper process from our perspective, then they can cut it off, right? So it's so if say the demigod of disease or whatever, it's all he's the agent that sort of puts it out there through the material elements. The material elements are there for him to control. That's why he's a demigod. He's a controller, sub-controller. He doesn't control the universe, but he controls his own sphere. If you understand what I mean, that's maybe just a little bit more of an elaboration.
Have we got time?
We have time for one more.
Sometimes I think animals are more intelligent than human beings because they're doing, what they're meant to do and they do it well. Where human beings are, not. And I'll just give one example of one devotee. We've always been told that we do our service for Krishna, what he likes. One devotee, they told me that they dress the deities, that the deities tell them what they want to wear. But I mean, to be at that level is amazing for me, because I'd be just thinking in my mind, I'm going to dress you how I want. So how do we get to that level of really being in tune with Krishna?
So to answer the question in the first place, it may seem sometimes that animals do it better than human beings, but the fact is, it says in the Bhagavatam that the human being is the best body to have because all the senses are grouped around the face. You have your eyes, your nose, your tongue, so you can put it all together real quickly. So, for instance, the dog's quality is that he's very, very faithful to his master. We use the example of the dog that, we're faithful to our spiritual master. But at the same point in time, the dog does not discriminate between what he eats. He'll eat stool and he'll eat, so like that. So he doesn't have that full facility. So every animal has its own particular attributes, but in general, the whole five. And then animals, they just act, as I said, instinct means that you don't ask those questions, who am I, where am I going? So they've not got that next level of intelligence to understand what is their supreme position in relationship with the Lord and the universe. Okay, thank you very much, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll wait with bated breath for the next part of the universal form, which we talk about Rana Ashram.